This is Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Chof Aleph, and we're holding on the bottom of Chof Amid Beis. We just learned the Mishnah, and the Mishnah dealt with different rights that one has in a chutzir, and how much one could protest that which someone is opening a store in the chutzir, or that which someone stam is making noise in the chutzir. We said if he opens a store that people are coming in all day and night, you can tell him that's too much. You can't do that in my chutzir. Again, let's remember, Bisman Chazal, multiple houses opened up into one chutzir. Whereas if the person is just making things in his house and you can't sleep due to the noise, then you cannot protest due to that. Says the Gemara, Maishna Reisha, Umaishna Seifa. What's the difference? The Reisha, we said people coming and going, you could yes protest. In the Seifa, we said that the noise you can't. And if you look at Rashi, on the last line of the Psalm, Rashi articulates, the Reisha said, I can't sleep, everyone coming and going. That's a good taina. And the Sefer says, I can't sleep because of the voice of the children. That's not a good taina. I don't understand, says the Gemara. What is the difference? Amar Abaye explains Abaye, Sefer asan l'chotzer acheres. Says Abaye, the Sefer is referring to when there are people in another court, another chutzir. You can't block someone's entrance into a different chutzir, only your own chutzir. So in the Sefer, when he said, that was talking about if in the neighboring chutzir, that you have no rights to protest. So why didn't the Mishnah just talk straight to another chutzir is mutter? Should have said in the Reisha that you cannot block, you could block something in your chutzir, but not someone else's. Elam Arava, so Rava comes along as we turn over to Chaf Aleph Amid Aleph with a new pshat and differentiating between the Reisha and the Seifa, in as much as both seemingly are discussing a very similar issue that the person cannot sleep due to the noise. Says Rava, Seifa, you know why in the Seifa you can't say anything is because Asan Latinaika shall base Rabban. It's kids going to school that you can't prevent kids who live elsewhere that they're coming into your chatzir to learn Torah. Takanas Yeshua ben Gamla. This was a takana of Yeshua ben Gamla that you have to have rabbeim in all the towns, and therefore, if there are kids coming even late at night to learn Torah and it's disrupting you, you still do not have a taina. Yeshua ben Gamla, ve'ilach, that from onward, that there would always be those teaching and able to learn Torah. Says the Gemara, a very famous Gemara. Ta'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Baram Zachar Ishlatayv Yeshua ben Gamla, Shemai, 4 lines down, Chav Aleph Amar Aleph Shel Malehu, if not for he, Nishtakach Torah me Yisrael. Rahman al-Islam, Torah would have been forgotten. Why? Originally, if someone had a father who would teach him Torah, if he didn't have a father, no one to teach him. My drush, what would they say? You should eat atem. You should teach your children Torah. That's what they darshan. Not v'limatem oisam, but rather atem. Hitkinu comes in Yeshua ben Gamla and he made a takana. Shem Moshe Melamdi Tinaika, he said there should be Rabbeim b'Yerushalayim, should be those to teach Torah. My drush, where did he learn this from? Ki mitziyayin neteitzei seira, that from tiyayin there should be Torah. V'adayin, and still misheish lavayim alam lamda mishein loyav loyoylev elam. My son who had a father would take him to Yerushalayim and they would have someone teach him Torah. If someone didn't have a father, then he wouldn't be able to go up to Yerushalayim and learn Torah. So therefore, hitkenu sheya Moshe b'chol plach uplach. Yeshua ben Gamla made a takana that in each and every province, umachnisin oisai keben tezayin, keben yudzayin, they should bring in kids 16, 17 years old and to be able to learn Torah. Omi sheya rabbi kayisalav, says the Gemara, what happened if a rabbi became angry? Mabit ba'y v'yatza, the child would rebel. I'm not listening to you, and he would walk out. Achaba Yeshua ben Gamla v'tikein what? Sheyamoy shivin melamde tinoikais. B'chol Medina, b'chol ir v'ir, in each and every city, in each and every town, and umachnisin oisa keben sheish keben sheva. And they would start teaching them Torah at what age? At the age of 6, at the age of 7, not at a latter age, in order to prevent a potential that a child would not be able to get along with the Rebbe, etc. Amar le Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, ad shes loy tikabel, until the age of 6, do not accept the kid as a Talmud. Mikan ve'ilach kabel v'asvi leiketura. From the age of 6, accept him as a Talmud and stuff him up like an ox. Teach him as much Torah as possible. We're 20 lines down. The first one line is v'asvi leiketura. V'amar le Rav Shmuel bar Shilas. Excuse me. And Rav said to Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Ki moches li'anuka loy timchi. Says Rav, when you hit a kid, loy timchi, don't hit him. Ella, ba'arkisa de misani, with a shoelace, that it's not going to really hurt the kid. To kairi, if he learns, great. To loy kairi, if he doesn't learn, leheve savsa lechavre, it'll be a warning to his friends. So you're allowed to hit the kid, says the Gemara, but obviously not in a way that's going to injure the kid. And obviously nowadays, even that level, we do not do. Says the Gemara Meisvei. Now, going back to our Mishnah, the din in the Mishnah that we explained that the seif of the Mishnah means that you can never block someone from learning Torah. Meisvei, says the Brisa, Uman vegardi. Someone in a chutzner wants to become a roife, a doctor. Rashi says it means a mile. Uman, a bloodletter. Vegardi, a weaver. Malamiti noikis, or a rebbe. B'nei chutzner, makvin alav. Says a Bryce explicitly that you're able to prevent someone in your chutzner from becoming a malamiti noikis, from becoming a rebbe, due to the fact that there's going to be excessive noise, etc., etc. So, but we just said a moment ago, you're not able to block such a case. Says the Gemara, doesn't mean teaching Torah. It means you stop teaching kids. That's when you could block, because that's not part of the takana of Yeshua ben Gamla. Tashema continues the Gemara. If two people are sitting in a chatzar, says Gemara again, Achanami, Betinaikes Ta'akum, doesn't mean an actual Rebbe. Tashema continues the Gemara. Misha Yesh, for 10 lines on the white lines, Misha Yesh lo beis chatzar hashotfim, hareze lo yaschirenu. Someone has a house in a area which a joint owned chatzar, should not rent it out, lo roif lo lo gardi lo sefer Yehudi, v'lo sefer Armai. Here the Bryce is explicitly not to a Jewish teacher or non-Jewish teacher. So seemingly, it says that you could yes block a Rebbe. The head teacher of town, that's when you could block him. Meaning he's like the menahel. If he wants to open up in the chatzar, that you could block. Because the Takan of Yeshua ben Gamla was just to ensure that there's enough people teaching Torah in each area. But for someone to be the head guy that everyone's going to be coming to him in all hours of the day, that you could block. Amar Rava, says Rava, going back to Yeshua ben Gamla, Yeshua ben Gamla, one should not take a child from one town to the next to learn Torah. Why? Because it's dangerous to travel. Be allowed to go from one shul to another shul within the same town. If there's a river separating, you shouldn't cross it. But if there is a bridge, you can go across the bridge. But if it requires a narrow plank, teaching Rava, then as much as you have to take the kid to learn Torah, you still have to be careful about sakana along the way. V'amar Rava, continues Rava, Sach, says Rava, Sach makri dartki. What is the sum total of those who, when you're teaching Chomish, Esr v'chamish yinuka, 25 kids. We're in the first wide line, Chaval of Amid Aleph. V'ika chamshin, Maisin and Trey. If you have 50 kids, we get 2 teachers. And if we have 40 kids, Makminan Reish Dochna. What do you do with 40 kids? You put an assistant, Umesayin Le Mimasa, and we support them from the town because he has to hire an extra assistant. We see already a precedent that, of course, is an optimal size of a classroom. But if you have amount of kids that need a yeshiva, we don't tell them no, says Rava. What do? We make sure we make the classroom bigger. You can't teach 40 kids at once. Okay, so the Eitzah is the assistant. And of course, you have to give the Rebbe a little extra money because he pays the assistant. V'amar Rava, Hi Mikri Yanuka. Someone who's teaching children, the garis, the garis tfei. One teaches faster, minei. You should not remove the first teacher just to appoint someone who teaches faster. Why? Because he might become lazy, because people think, oh, he's so much better. And if they see that you got rid of the first teacher and they hire him, he'll become complacent and maybe he won't do his job properly. Rav Dimin Ardaya Amar in the fourth white line, Kolshke in the Garis Tvei. Certainly, he'll teach faster. Kina Seiferim Tarbe Chachma. Says Rav Dimi, no. Yes, replace the teacher. There's a better Rebbe, hire the better one. You'll become complacent? No, the famous statement says Rav Dimi, competition is good in such a scenario. Kina Seifrim, if there's jealousy amongst the Seifrim, amongst the scholars, amongst the Rabbeim, that increases Chachma. Vamer Rava. Continues Rava, Hanu Trey Mikri Didar Deki. We have 2 teachers. Chad Garis V'lo Dayik V'chad Dak V'lo Garis. One teaches faster, but he's not so precise. One teaches slower, but he's more precise. Which one should we be the Rebbe? Moisvina Ahu De Garis V'lo Dayik. We go the one that learns faster. V'lo Dayik, but he's not precise. Shabashta Memila Nafka. Why? Because the mistakes will be corrected as you go along. It's true, you go fast, you might pick up a mistake or 2, but in the process, you'll fix it. Rav Dimin Ardam, he argues, Masfin the Daik Velogaris. Why? Shabesh even Dalal. Once you get a mistake in the brain, it's stuck. For 6 months, Yoav and all of Klal Yisrael remain there. Ad Hechres Kol Zachar B'Edaim, until he cut off every Zachar and Edaim. However, the girls were spared. Ki Aslik made David. When Yoav came in front of David HaMelech, Amar Lei, David says to Yoav, as we turn over to Chaval V'Ameh Beis, my time about Achi. Why did he only kill the males and not the females? As Rashi says, Shloi Ragti as an Akevos. Wonders David HaMelech. So Amar Lei, so Yoav answers to David HaMelech. It says in the pasuk, Tivcha Zecher Amalek, that you should eradicate the Zchar Amalek. Amar Lei, says David, Va'anan Zochar Karinon. We don't read Zechar, but we read it, Zecher, which is the memory of Amalek, not the Zochar. Amar Lei, says Yoav, Ana Zochar Akrinon. I read it Zachar or Zechar, which referring to the males. Azal Shaile Rabbe, and this is of course why we bring down this story. They went and they asked the Rebbe. Yoav asked his Rebbe, Amar Lehecha Kriton, how did you teach me? Amar Le, said the Rebbe, Zecher. I said it means Zecher, meaning the Rebbe was right, but Yoav heard it incorrectly, and therefore the Rebbe didn't correct Yoav. So Yoav went through his whole life thinking that the mitzvah of Mechias HaMalik is only on the males. Shakal Savsalem Mekatle. Yoav wanted to kill his Rebbe. Amar Le, the Rebbe said, am I? What's going on? Why do I deserve such a thing? Amar Le, Yoav says, Cursed be the one that's negligent in the way that he works for God. Amar Le, the Rebbe said, Shavkelu Gavar Deleikum Ba'oror. Leave that man alone. He's talking about himself. Let him remain cursed. Amar Le, Ksev Aror Maineach Charbay Midam. Says Yoav, curses he who withholds the blood for the sword. Ikadamri Kadle, Ikadamri Loi Kadle. Some says Yoav killed the Rebbe, some said he did not. But what do we see from this story? The absolute destructive powers and the critical need of teaching correctly and correcting when a mistake is made. V'amar Rava, and continues Rava about 12 lines from the top. The first line is Mikri. Mikri Yunika Shatole Tabacha Va'umni V'Seifer Masa. Teacher of children, Shatala Tabacha, Shatala, someone who plants vines, Tabacha, the butcher, Umna, the bloodletter, Seifer Masa, the town scribe, Kulan Kim Meisrin Ba'im Dininu. They're all considered warned, meaning if they make a mistake, these are not areas that you can make mistakes, you can dispose of them immediately. Klala de Milsa. What's the rule? Says the Gemara. Any mistake which cannot be fixed, you can't fix it if you serve treif meat. You can't fix it if you teach wrong. Then you can remove them right away, and you do not have to give them a second chance. Says the Gemara, let's go back to the Mishnah. We started off today differentiating between disturbances from a neighboring chatzar and your own chatzar. We said disturbances from within your chatzar you could prevent, but not a neighboring chatzar. Amar Rav Huna hay bar mevua. Says Rav Huna, people of a mavui to uki rechaya. They set up a mill, a rechaya for a commercial for business. Vasa bar mevua chavrei, and the neighboring mavui comes. Kamuki gabe dina. And what do? V'kamuki gabe, and they set up another mill for the same reason. Dino de me'akev aluye. The first mavui could stop the second one. The amar le kapaskas le lechayusei. You're cutting off my livelihood. This is my business, and therefore you can prevent him. So we're segueing over here. We started discussing blocking people due to noises, blocking people due to disturbances. Now says the Gemara, what about blocking people due to business failings? Says Gemara, I'll bring you a raya. You have to distance each fisherman. Kemali reases a dog, the amount as much as the fish swims. Vikama. So what do we see? You can't set up a business right next door to your friend. Says Gemara, no raya. Shiny dagiv diavesi raya. Because once they have their set their sights on something, they're going to swim to it, and therefore we have to be worried. Therefore, when there's one fisherman there, it's as if he already trapped it. So for another fisherman to come, it's a mamish like stealing his business, but not necessarily does this prove about stam stealing someone's business. Amle Ravina l'Rava lema Ravuna damer Krav Yehuda. Let's say Rav Huna, who just said that one can prevent another from setting up the rechaya, holds like Rav Yehuda. That's not learned in the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda Aimer says Rav Yehuda lo yechali chanveni kaleyos v'agoydin l'tinoikis. You're not allowed to give out nuts and other items to the children, and they shamar gilim. That's like because you accustom the kids to come to you, and you're removing them from going to another store. So seemingly Rav Huna is saying like this didn't Rav Yehuda that you can't steal customers from another store. V'chachamim atirim, and the chachamim say it's mutter. Says Gemara, no, I feel tema Rabbanan. Rav Huna can even work with the Rabbanan. What did Rabbanan argue? Hasam only over there. Elodamar lei. What do the Chachamim say? Chachamim don't say that you're allowed to steal business. Chachamim say, if I have one tactic to attract customers, you could do the similar thing. I'm giving out walnuts, you give out almonds. Competitive business. But in our case, maybe I feel Rabbanan moided to Rav Huna Damar Leika Pasat Kilel Chayusi that when the guy sets up a mill, mamish in the neighboring mavoi, you're cutting off my livelihood, and therefore you could prevent him from doing such. Meisvei, ask the Gemara, we're 20 lines to the bottom. The first line is L'chayusei. Oisa Adam Chano, says the Bryce, you're allowed to make a store. B'tzad chanusei shal chaveiro. Yomer chatzad merchatzad shal chaveiro. You're allowed to make a bathhouse like your friend's bathhouse. V'ini achalim chazbim yada. Why? Nishachalim. You can tell him. Ata yosef b'tei shalach. V'ani yosef b'tei shali. What's the problem? I'm in my property. You're in your property. Seemingly not like Rav Huna, who says he's able to prevent the neighboring mill. Says the Gemara, Tanoi. In reality, it's a machlekes Tanoim. D'Tanya. They could force each other that they not to sit one next to the next. A tailor of Leibursky, a tanner, nor a Rebbe, there's no other craftsman. Says this Brisa, you're able to prevent someone from the next Mavoi from doing such because you have a business in your mavoi. Ulishchenai einai kaifeu. But you cannot force a neighbor to refrain from opening a competitive business. The next door mavoi you could, but not a neighbor in the mavoi. Rashbag Oimer. Av l'shcheinai kafeu, you can even force your own neighbor. So Tanakama says you could block competition from the outsider, but not from a neighbor. Rashbag says you could block anyone. So Rav Huna seemingly is going with Rav Shimon Gamliel that you could block someone from your own mavoi. So says the Gemara, it's Machlekes Tanoim, and that is whom Rav Huna holds like. Rav Huna b'reid Rav Yeshua. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this sugya of ruining another's business. Pshitali, the following is Pashit bar Masa Achriti Matzah Me'ak. Says Rav Huna b'reid Rav Yeshua. If it's one town who wants to prevent another town, everyone agrees that you could do that. But if they pay their own taxes, then loy matzi ma'akev, then you cannot block them from opening such a business. Bar mevoya. But what about two different mavuis? Bar mevoya, dinavshe loy matzi ma'akev. That's the Tanakama, which of course, that's what Rav Shimon Gamliel argues on, and that's what we just said. That Rav Huna goes like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and we conclude with one last shayla. By Rav Huna b'reid Rav Yeshua bar mevoya achrina mai. What if it's on a different mavoi, but from the same town? Says the Gemara, Teku. That is not clear. So we have the sheet of Rav Huna. We're saying that Rav Huna goes like Rav Shimon Gamliel. There's a Tanakama that argues, but it's not a kashan of Rav Huna because he could go like Rav Shimon Gamliel, which, of course, we know these are large sigas halacha. How careful one has to be for another's livelihood. We'll pick it up from Rav Yosef B'siyata Dishmaya.